everyone, I am Nashida Sabdullah and I'm going to talk about Sigmund Freud theories. So first, let us know who is Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud was an Austrian neurologist and the founder of psychoanalysis. So hindi na natin kailangang pahabain or alamin pa yung history ni Sigmund Freud. But let us proceed to his major theories. One of his most enduring ideas is the concept of the unconscious mind, which is a reservoir of thoughts, memories, and emotions that lie outside the awareness of the conscious mind. So according to Sigmund Freud, human personality is complex and has more than a single component. In his famous psychoanalytic theory, Freud states that personality is composed of three elements known as the id, ego, and the superego. These elements work together to create complex human behaviors. Let us know what is the id. According to Freud, the id is the source of all psychic energy, making it the primary component of personality. The id is the only component of personality that is present from birth. This aspect of personality is entirely unconscious and includes instinctive and primitive behaviors. The id is driven by the pleasure principle, which strives for immediate gratification of all desires, wants, and needs. If these needs are not satisfied immediately, the result is a state anxiety or tension. For example, an increase in hunger or thirst should produce an immediate attempt to eat or drink. Just for example, imagine trying to convince a baby with or to wait until lunchtime to eat their meal. The id requires immediate satisfaction, and because the other components of personality are not yet present, the infant will cry until these needs are fulfilled. Next is the ego. The ego operates based on the reality principle, which strives to satisfy the ids, desires in realistic and socially appropriate ways. The reality principle weighs the cost and benefits of an action before deciding to act upon or abandon impulses. So, for example, imagine that you are stuck in a long meeting at work. You find yourself growing increasingly hungry as the meeting drags on. While the id might compel you to jump up from your seat and rush to the break room for a snack, the ego guides you to sit quietly and wait for the meeting to end. So, Freud compared the id to a horse and the ego to the horse's rider. The horse provides the power and motion, while the rider provides direction and guidance. Without its rider, the horse may simply wander wherever it wished and do whatever it pleased. The rider gives the horse directions and commands to get it to go where the rider wants it to go. Next is the superego. Superego tries to perfect and civilize our behavior. It works to suppress all unacceptable urges of the id and struggles to make the ego act upon idealistic standards rather than upon realistic principles. The superego is present in the conscious, preconscious, and unconscious. Freud's theory provides one conceptualization of how personality is structured and how the elements of personality function. In Freud's view, a balance in the dynamic interaction of the id, ego, and superego is necessary for a healthy personality. There are two subdivisions of the superego. First is the conscience, and the second is the ego ideal. So in the conscience, the internalized experiences for which a child is punished. So in the ego ideal, the internalized experiences for which a child has been rewarded. So let us proceed in the cathexis and anti-cathexis. So in the cathexis, it refers to the relationships or connection between a need and an object that will satisfy the need. And the anti-cathexis is the inhibition of an impulse by either the ego or the superego. So next is the anxiety. For Freud, the most extreme form of anxiety is that or in that human being experience is when they are separated from their mother at birth. The function of anxiety is to warn us that if we continue thinking or behaving in a certain way, we will be in danger. Since anxiety is not pleasant, we try to reduce it. So there are three kinds of anxiety. First is the reality anxiety that caused by real objective sources of danger in the environment. Next is the neurotic anxiety. Fear that the impulses of the id will overwhelm the ego and making the person do something for which he or she will be punished. For example, is the rape. And the third one is the moral anxiety. Fear of doing something contrary to the superego and thus experience guilt, and for example is the cheating and stealing. The alternative approach defends against anxiety by distorting or denying the situation itself. The ego protects the whole personality against the threat by falsifying the nature of the threat. The ways in which the distortions are accomplished are called defense mechanisms. So we have a defense mechanisms, and these are the repressions, displacement, identification, reaction formation, projection, rationalization, and regression. So we have a topping the unconscious mind, and Freud employed the following methods to determine the contents of the unconscious mind. So we have a free association. So in conscious expressions, there are hints regarding the contents of the unconscious mind that a trained observer could detect. And next is the dream analysis. So dreams are camouflage or distinguished thoughts. The manifest content of a dream is what it appears to be, while the latent content is the underlying repressed thoughts that cause the dream. So yung dream analysis is yun yung kapag may gusto tayo, or if we are thinking our futures, our aims in life, our goals, yun. There are forms of dream distortion. First is the condensation. When a part of something symbolizes the whole thing, example, an article of clothing symbolizes symbolizes a person, and one street symbolizes as a city. Next is the synthesis. When an idea contained in the manifest content of a dream is actually a combination of many ideas in the latent content. Example, childhood pet represents an entire family. Next is the dislocation, displacement of unacceptable ideas to something that is symbolically equivalent and acceptable. The example is the breast mountains. Breast is equals to mountains, penis as a baseball bat. So, yan yung mga example ng dislocation. Everyday life, Freud believed that all human behavior have a cause. Nothing happens simply by chance. The main point of Freud is just because a thought is repressed, just because a thought is repressed does not mean that it goes away. It is always there, striving for expression, and these manifestations in everyday life are ways of getting a glimpse into the unconscious. And the last is the humor. Humor allows expression of repressed thoughts in a socially approved manner. For a joke to be funny, it must contain anxiety-provoking materials. So, next is the dynamics of personality. Human behavior is primarily instinctive and motivated mainly by unconscious mechanisms. There are four components of dynamics of personality. And first is the source, second is the aim, third is the impetus, and the last one is the object. Some other important Freudian theories include his concepts of life and death instincts and the theory of psychosexual development. So, isingit lang natin yung yung Freud's patients, yung patients ni Freud, but it is not totally his patient. So, throughout Freud's career, a number of his patients helped shape his theories and became well known in their own right. Anna O, for example, was never actually a patient of Freud's. She was, however, a patient of Freud's colleague, Joseph Breuer. Yun. Patient yun ni Joseph Breuer, si Anna O. So, The two men corresponded often about Anna O's symptoms, eventually publishing a book, her case studies on hysteria. It was through their work and correspondence that the technique known as a talk therapy emerged. In the psychic energy, Freud postulated that the id was the basic source of psychic energy, or the force that drives all mental processes. In particular, he believed that libido, or sexual urges, was the psychic energy that drives all human actions. The libido was countered by thanatos, the death instinct that drives destructive behavior. Freud noted two basic impulses, which are the life instinct, or eros, and the death instinct, or thanatos. Let us proceed to the psychosexual stages of development. Freud believed that every child goes through in sequence of developmental stages, and the experiences during these stages will determine his or her adult personality characteristics. There are five psychosexual stages of development, and first is the oral, second is the anal, third is the phallic, fourth is the latency, and the last one is the genital stage. As you can see, we have a psychosexual stages of development, and in the oral, in the age of 0 to 1 year old, their erogenous zone, or primary source of pleasure, is the mouth. The gratification are the eating, biting, thumb sucking, and chewing. The conflict was the winning. And second is the anal. In the age of 2 to 3 year old, the erogenous zone, or primary source of pleasure, is the anus, and the gratification is discharging and retaining bowel movement, and the conflict is the toilet training. The third one is the phallic. In the age of 3 to 6 year old, their erogenous zone, or primary source of pleasure, are the phallus, or the genital. The gratification are the penis for males and clitoris for females, and the conflict is the boy Oedipus complex and girl Electra complex. The fourth one is the latency. In the age of 6 to 12 year old, their erogenous zone, or primary source of pleasure, was none, and the gratification are the directed to same sex, schoolworks, hobbies, and the complex is the social interactions with others. The last one is the genital stage. In the age of 12 to adult, their erogenous zone, or primary source of pleasure, is the genital, and the gratification was the heterosexual and mating, and of course the maturation, and the conflict is the establishing intimate relationships.